Warning, the following content contains ponies. If that triggers you, leave. Oh boy, alright, here we go. This video has been a long time coming. I remember a few weeks ago, I posted an announcement saying that eventually I was going to start making content surrounding My Little Pony. I asked you guys to vote on whether or not you were okay with this. I got overwhelmingly positive results, saying that it's totally fine because it's my channel. So here we go. From now on, I'm going to post a warning that the video will contain content about ponies, if you couldn't already tell by the thumbnail or the title of the video. But I will suggest, even if you're not a fan of this show, I highly recommend sticking around because I'm certain that once these videos get out to the rest of the Brony community, the comments are going to become a comedy goldmine. So what am I getting at here? Well, I've often found myself watching videos from other analysts in the My Little Pony community, and this is one of the things that actually drove me to make this channel and start my series called Overlooked, where I talk about things other people forget to talk about. Because even more so than the video game community, the My Little Pony community is far worse with this aspect. In fact, there are several times where I will feel like going but the tipping point that fully encouraged me to start progress with this was when one of the most famous analysts in the community, Dr. Wolf, said in one of his videos,
"If there is any element that will shake things up, draw some genuine interest into the series again, it would have to be combining the universes and having a true crossover film."
And all that was going through my head was, so here we go. I'm finally getting this message out that for some reason nobody has been able to figure out for almost 3 years now. So just like I've said at the beginning of all my other videos, shut the hell up and listen. Alright people, fans of My Little Pony, casual viewers, Pegasisters, bronies, whatever the hell you want to call yourself, listen up. And this is going to be a real hard pill for you to swallow. But I need you to listen. You should have already figured this out on your own. To my knowledge, and trust me, I've looked, no one has. Here's what you need to know. My Little Pony and Equestria Girls are completely separate now. Sunset's never going back to Equestria. You're never going to see Starlight in the Equestria Girls. Human Twilight is the new Twilight. Princess Twilight's gone. The Dazzlings are the best villains. The songs in Equestria Girls are way better. Equestria Girls and My Little Pony are branching in 2 separate directions. They're going after 2 separate audiences now. You're never going to see ponies and humans in the same screen ever again. It's gone, 100% gone. They're not ever interacting with each other again. I'm telling you right now. Ponies, humans, separate from now on. Okay, sorry about that. But yeah, that's pretty much exactly what I needed to say. It is something that nobody has noticed so far. I don't know how this has gone under the radar for so long. My Little Pony and Equestria Girls are 2 different series now. Equestria Girls may have started off as a spin-off of My Little Pony, but now it's slowly branching over into being its own thing. When did I first notice this? Well, the first time I had suspicions of this was back in 2013 when the first Equestria Girls even came out to begin with. I immediately thought to myself after watching it, this looks like it could actually attract a whole new audience. You could get into situations and teach messages that aren't even possible with the normal characters in the show. So I have a feeling that eventually this is going to branch off and cater to a whole different audience. Obviously, that was just a thought that I had at the time. Thought nothing of it much anymore. Then the second movie came out. And oh man, that second movie was awesome. That movie set the bar for everyone's expectations of Equestria Girls. No other movie has been able to top Rainbow Rocks. From the awesome songs, to Sunset Shimmer being a good guy, to the Dazzlings. It was just straight up awesome. And then we got to the post-credits scene where we saw Human Twilight. And I knew at that moment sitting in the theater that this was going to be the changing course of events. However, we needed to wait until season 5 to learn anything more about how this would be changed. So I started scrutinizing every little detail as soon as season 5 started to come out. And already I saw some comparisons when Starlight Glimmer came into the picture. Starlight Glimmer was a new villain introduced in the beginning of season 5 for those who don't know. And she was essentially a cult leader. In the end, she ran away. Throughout season 5, she showed up in the background slowly spying on Twilight and eventually made a return in the finale. In the finale, she decides to get revenge on Twilight for destroying her philosophy by going back in time and causing the event that led to Twilight and her friends meeting and discovering their destinies to never actually happen. However, without Twilight and her friends there to stop all the bad guys that came out throughout the seasons, Equestria was left in complete ruin every time. Twilight was actually unable to defeat Starlight, and the whole reason that this turmoil even ended was because Twilight was eventually able to make Starlight realize the detrimental effects of her actions. However, Twilight later realizes there's a lot of magic potential in Starlight and decides to take her in as her own student. This in and of itself was already a big change in the series because I saw this as a bookend to how the series began. Celestia teaching Twilight, Twilight now teaching her own student. The student has literally become the teacher. Then, a year later, Equestria Girls 3 comes out, The Friendship Game. And in this movie, we meet human Twilight, who, in the end, ends up transferring to Canterlot High and becoming friends with the main character, therefore replacing Princess Twilight from Equestria and eliminating her need to be in every Equestria Girls movie. Now, at the time, I didn't think much of this because if you watch the post-credit scene, you'd know that it ends with Twilight coming through the portal and meeting her human counterpart. Everybody assumed that this meant that the fourth movie was going to revolve around some kind of adventures featuring two Twilights. Unfortunately, the plot of the fourth movie was leaked, and it turned out to have absolutely nothing to do with the two Twilights. Then, shortly after that, details about Equestria Girls 3's DVD was released, and we saw that there was a lot of deleted scenes, and these deleted scenes shed light on so much. We learned in these deleted scenes that the movie was actually going to have a very much different plot. In this previous plot, Sunset was actually going to contemplate going home back to Equestria several times throughout the movie. In fact, the song What More Is Out There was originally going to be a duet between Sunset and Twilight. If you haven't heard it yet, I highly recommend doing it. It's actually way better than the version we got on the movie. And in the end, human Twilight decides to stay at Crystal Prep and instead befriends the Shadowbolts. And Sunset decides to stay here in the human world. Now, at first everyone was assuming that the reason that this wasn't used in the final cut of the movie was because this plot was later being reserved for Equestria Girls 4. However, we now know that this isn't the case. So I started thinking, why did this happen? And then I started to piece together things that were happening in both Equestria Girls and the show. Equestria Girls now has their own Twilight, and the show now has their own form of Sunset Shimmer in the form of Starlight Glimmer. And then at that moment I realized, Hasbro probably told the writers to change the script and remove any notion of Sunset coming back to Equestria, because if they do that, Equestria Girls ends, and Hasbro wants Equestria Girls to stay and make this its own franchise. Now before I get into how that works, I'm going to further explain what I said previously. A lot of people are really bitter about accepting the fact that Starlight is literally Sunset in Equestria, but you really can't deny it anymore. Even Big Jim himself tried to deny it, but everyone who pays attention can easily say, yeah, that's a lie. It's like when the writers of Legend of Korra tried to convince us that Korrasami was something they planned from the beginning. So what am I talking in here? Well, first, let's describe Sunset Shimmer. Sunset Shimmer was a unicorn who didn't know a damn thing about friendship, but she knew a hell of a lot about magic. She used this magic to manipulate people and bend everyone to her will. Then comes along Twilight, who smacks her off her high horse, teaches her about friendship, totally humiliates her in front of everyone, and inevitably leaves her begging for forgiveness. Twilight then takes her up under her wing. No pun intended. And she becomes eager to learn more about friendship and prove herself to Twilight. Later on, a new problem arises in the form of a villain and her multiple lackeys. And this villain is so evil and manipulative that even Twilight can't solve this problem. The villain successfully defeats Twilight and her friends, but doesn't even consider Sunset to be a threat, which ends up being her downfall when Sunset steps in as a reinforcement and unexpectedly steals the show, thus resulting in the villain's defeat and Twilight and her friends being saved by Sunset. She has now earned her place amongst the main six as one of the main seven, and has proved that she is capable of handling herself without Twilight. She has been integrated into the main cast and is here to stay. Now you may be asking, what does this have to do with Starlight Glimmer? Well, let's rewind the tape, because if you change every instance of Sunset Shimmer to Starlight Glimmer, you describe them with the exact same story that I just read to you. Don't believe me? Listen to this.
Starlight
was a unicorn who didn't know a damn thing about friendship, but she knew a hell of a lot about magic. She used this magic to manipulate people and bend everyone to her will. Then comes along Twilight, who smacks her off her high horse, teaches her about friendship, totally humiliates her in front of everyone, and inevitably leaves her begging for forgiveness. Twilight then takes her up under her wing. No pun intended. And she becomes eager to learn more about friendship and prove herself to Twilight. Later on, a new problem arises in the form of a villain and her multiple lackeys. And this villain is so evil and manipulative that even Twilight can't solve this problem. The villain successfully defeats Twilight and her friends, but doesn't even consider
Starlight
to be a threat, which ends up being her downfall.
Starlight
Steps in as a reinforcement and unexpectedly steals the show, thus resulting in the villain's defeat and Twilight and her friends being saved.
Starlight
She has now earned her place amongst the main six as one of the main seven, and has proved that she is capable of handling herself without Twilight. She has been integrated into the main cast and is here to stay.
You see, they're the exact same character. The only difference is that their personalities slightly vary to try to throw people off this notion that ended up getting found out anyways, and the fact that as of this recording, Starlight has not discovered her own element. If you haven't seen Equestria Girls 4, spoiler warning, but it's pretty much all but confirmed at this point that Sunset Shimmer is officially the 7th element. They have yet to directly name what it is in show, but based off of her powers, it's empathy. And this is further backed by the fact that Megan McCarthy said that in her headcanon, Sunset's element is empathy. So I'm pretty sure that come Equestria Girls 5, or in the upcoming 3 episodic specials we'll be getting next year, they're probably going to officially name the element empathy. I have a feeling that sometime in season 7, or maybe the season after that, I'm pretty sure we're getting at least 8 seasons of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, Starlight is going to unlock her element. Whether or not it will end up being empathy or something different remains to be seen. But honestly, with all the flawless parallels that you draw between her and Sunset Shimmer, I honestly would not be surprised if they're spot on exactly the same. I don't understand how someone can hate Sunset Shimmer or love Starlight Glimmer or vice versa. They're the same character. You can't love but hate one. It just makes no sense. But my point with all of this is the fact that Starlight serves to replace Sunset Shimmer in Equestria, and Human Twilight was added to Equestria Girls to replace the need for Princess Twilight to have to go to that universe every single time that a problem arises in the form of their yearly movies. Like I said, this is because Hasbro is planning to branch these 2 series in different directions. And I think, personally, this is actually a smart move. It may not be the move that I wanted them to go, especially due to the fact that this means that there will probably be less lore about the 2 universes interacting with each other as there was in the second movie. This probably means that the Equestria Girls series is going to be confined to every single movie following the same plot of essentially, it turns out that insert character here somehow got a hold of equestrian magic, and now we gotta defeat them using the elements, and it's gonna be the same thing as the 4th movie every time. I mean, there will be ways of making it different, but I really feel like that's gonna happen. I'm pretty sure there's ways they can do it to make it entertaining, and I really hope they do. But at the same time, if this is the direction Hasbro wants the series to go, then I guess I'll be fine with that. And by that I mean I'm willing to give it a chance. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Equestria Girls and I love My Little Pony, I love them both. But I highly doubt we're going to see the 2 universes interact with each other ever again. And if we do, it's going to be very small and very subtle. I really don't think we're ever going to see Princess Twilight ever come back into the human world, and I really don't think we're ever going to see Sunset come back to Equestria. They might have teased that a few times at Comic-Con, and I know they have, and a lot of people are probably going to try to bring that up in the comments to disprove this whole video. But like I said, they're trying really hard to make this not look obvious right now. Like I said, Big Jim outright denied that Starlight was supposed to be a Sunset clone when that's literally what she is. Pretty much the entire Equestria Girls universe is trying to reformat itself. Even more evidence of that was witnessed in this recent movie, Legend of Everfree, the 4th installment in the series. We know that before the events of the first Equestria Girls movie, Flash Sentry and Sunset Shimmer were going out with each other. When Princess Twilight came along, Flash Sentry started to develop a crush on her, and that kind of just crashed and burned. Nobody liked it because of how forced it was. But then Human Twilight comes along, and she's not really into Flash. Instead, she's into this new character we met named Timber Spruce. And in all honesty, I kind of like this. I feel like there's an actual sense of development here. He was more of a character than Flash ever was. But what I also see them doing, and you can see this for a few minutes, more like 1 minute in the movie, is a rebudding relationship between Flash and Sunset. It seems like they're trying to get them both back together and kind of reset what happened due to Princess Twilight's intervention. I have a feeling that even the mention of her is going to be toned down. I mean, the most she was mentioned in this movie was a casual conversation between Sunset and Human Twilight at the very beginning of the movie, which lasted for less than 10 seconds. Hell, I even feel like the name Equestria itself will probably be confined to only very minimal mentioning. If anything, it's only going to be used when a villain needs an explanation as to how they arrived, which was the case in this 4th movie. And even more evidence lies in the pendants they got at the end of this movie, which, whether or not they actually name them the Elements of Harmony, literally are the human world's equivalent to the Elements of Harmony. You can't deny that. I'd love to see someone try to deny that. And there's already evidence of their themes going in 2 different directions as well. My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, as the name implies, has always been primarily about friendship-related issues. It's never really been about relationships. However, in Equestria Girls, since the 1st movie, and really heavily implied by the 4th movie, relationships are a big center point in these stories. I have a feeling that Equestria Girls over time is going to cater more toward a preteen/teenage audience, and they're probably going to get into things like peer pressure and bullying and hazing and relationships, maybe LGBT issues. They could get into a whole range of situations with this show that you just can't get away with in My Little Pony. And I feel in the long run that's a smart move, but that's just something I want people to understand, because literally oh my god, I have sat here for so long waiting to see someone bring this up. To my knowledge, nowhere I've looked, I've seen anyone bring this up. And it's alarming because this has been obvious since the third movie came out over a year ago. And even then, like I said at the beginning of this video, I still see the top analysts in this community still saying, I'd really like to see a collaboration between Human Twilight and Sunset Twilight, or a story that involves Equestria again, but that's not going to happen. Maybe it will, maybe I'm wrong about all of this, maybe I'm just reading in between the lines for things that aren't there. I honestly hope so, but with the direction that this series is going, it really looks like they're dropping most, if not all, connections to Equestria and My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. So, TLDR rundown. Equestria Girl is splitting off from My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. Sunset's never going back to Equestria because she already is in Equestria under the name Starlight Glimmer. Exact same character. Sunset's never coming back to Equestria. Twilight's never going back to the human world. That's what we have Human Twilight for. The characters have been cross-replaced in each series, and any sort of plot elements that were created by the introduction of Princess Twilight into the human world, such as Flash Century, have been eradicated as of the fourth movie. The series is now essentially a clean slate to begin something new, should it choose to, and I'm okay with that. And y'all should be as well, because for the 5 people out there that still don't like Equestria Girls for some reason, this means that you can ignore it even more and keep complaining about how it's apparently bad when it's just as good as the show. But like I said, I just want to get this out there. That's the point of my videos. Normally I don't like to self-advertise, but I really feel like if you are a fan of this show, you should spread this message, because I have not seen anyone else cover this, and it is amazing to me how long this managed to get overlooked.
Some Starlight?